Hello, YouTube. I am just getting myself going over on Facebook as well so that we are able to read the first part of The Human Aura by Kuthumi. And I am going to do my best to read this as fluidly as I possibly can. So we are going live on Facebook right now. Hello, guys. I hope that you are well. It's true. Oh my, it's true. Today is a big day because I say at 4 today we had the lawfully organized Summit 3. How are you today? I wonder. And then I say at 1 p.m. I interviewed Michael about Saint Germain. So I'll get that up soon, and then I want to say to you that sometimes singing feels good, and so we will not when we read The Human Aura by Kuthumi. That's what we are here to do today. And so behind me, there's a lot of notes, all of that. And then all of this too. This here is a mess because that is what I am working through right now. That is many years of work and effort to come down to just all these things. And so I say to you, I will want to just let go of all that in order to get back to the best things that we got there. And that's what this is too. In the teachings of the Ascended Masters, the human aura is known as one of the 4 foundational pillars of the teachings of the Ascended Masters. This one is by Kuthumi. The second is actually going to be by D. Jwal Kul. And so we're going to be getting to that as the 4th series in the 4-part of this foundational text for the teachings of the Ascended Masters. And so Kuthumi's book is part 1, which we will get to, and then we will read the 2 books that are in Saint Germain on alchemy as the other 2 foundational pillars of the teachings before then getting back to Kul's work. And that's when then we'll get back to learning the intermediate lessons about the human aura. So 7:05. I hope you've got your drink with you and are ready to listen, to take this in at a deeper level. I'm going to be reading it and I've got to focus, but you don't. So if you want to move, I highly encourage it. If you want to exercise, if you want to do something, I highly encourage that because when you move your body, then you feel better. And that ultimately is going to help you with your aura. So the Human Aura, Book 1, Kuthumi. Chapter 1, The Perfecting of the Aura. As we commence these auric studies, let it be understood that the combined manifestation of body, soul, and mind creates around the spinal column and the medulla oblongata those emanations called by some the human aura and by others the magnetic force field of the body of man. Let it be understood by all who read that each individual in whom is the flame of life reveals himself as though he were to shout it from the housetops. All that he really is, all that he has done, and even the portent of that which he shall be, right in the force field of his being and in the magnetic emanations surrounding his physical form. The reading in depth of the human aura is no ordinary science. Those who would undertake to do so should understand that by a simple change in thought, the foundation of the human aura, which pours forth from its own orifice, can change its color, its emanation, its magnetic affinity, its complete identity. Yet at the same time, it may retain beneath the surface the capacities to poison the atmosphere of the individual or the auric emanation within by virtue of his failure to cleanse himself in heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, is more than a beatitude issuing from the mouth of the living Christ. It is a fiat of strength shining promised to all who behold it. We have pondered the great need of humanity for purification, and we advocate above all the purification of motive. But when individuals do not see clearly just what their own motives are, it becomes exceedingly difficult by reason of their own internal blindness for them to purify themselves. Therefore, the purification of the faculty of vision has been given top priority by the masters because it has been our experience that when men learn to see as God sees, they perceive the need to correct their problems and in most cases do so without further delay. I want to make sure that it is actually, in fact, recording. Oh, very good. Excellent. Jesse's here. Amazing. I didn't realize. Jesse, hello. You are not supposed to be joining in the meeting specifically, my friend. I'm going to just mute you and get back to reading. You having a good night?
What happened?
I'm reading The Human Aura by Kuthumi, and you're going to have to catch up because you're 9 minutes late, my friend. So I only accepted you in here just because I saw you and I didn't want to leave you out. But if you go watch this over on Facebook, I'm recording this, and this is not meant to be where other people are necessarily. No, it's good. I gave out the code though for it, so I got to figure it out for next time better. So thank you for showing up. I don't know how to give you just the information about the chakras, like what you had asked for before. So you're just gonna have to listen to the whole book. So we're on page 4. All right.
Maybe.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good night, Jesse. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. Okay. Toodaloo. Okay, so sorry about that, guys. I just saw that he was waiting and I didn't want him to be left. And so then we refocus and we breathe ourselves back into the moment. And when unexpected things happen, we let that be okay and we don't judge it. And we just say, thank you to the ones who show up sincerely. So thank you for being there while a friend came on to the Zoom message unexpectedly. And yet we live, we learn, we grow, and then we know don't give out that code, give out the code. But how do you give out a code for a Facebook Live before you've went live? If you know and you could let me know, I'd appreciate it so that I could post it out. But I'm going to have to figure all of these things out, but you just do as much as you can. So now that I am completely distracted, we're getting refocused. Okay. So I'll just reread the paragraph. Therefore, the purification of the faculty of vision has been given top priority by the masters because it has been our experience that when men learn to see as God sees, they perceive the need to correct their problems and in most cases do so without further delay. In the matter of our brotherhood, those unascended devotees who wear the golden robe of cosmic illumination, who in truth are illumined concerning the many subjects ordinarily hidden from the average seeker on the path, are expected to perform more advantageously in directing their lives according to the instructions issuing from their lips. A good example is the best teacher. Now, what is the object of humanity's desire to read the human aura? Is it simply to satisfy some quality of human curiosity, or do they find satisfaction in perceiving the wrongs of others without correcting their own? All who undertake this study of auric emanations and of the human force field as it pours forth into space should recognize the creative nature already existing in man. By the misuse of the creative nature, men have fabricated in countless lives undesirable and unwholesome conditions which plague their youth, disturb their elders, and in no way contribute to the growth of the quality of human life as originally envisioned by Almighty God. The hope of the world as the light of the world is to be considered. The world today emanates an aura not at all resembling the Christic aura of the universal Christ consciousness, and the bulk of the people remain in ignorance of the simplest cosmic truths because the powers of darkness that are in the world have accomplished the distortions of the scriptures which they desired long, long ago. Man's interpretation of his relationship to the divine involves itself in pagan anthropomorphic concepts. Man's interpretation of his relationship to the divine involves itself in pagan anthropomorphic concepts. God is seen as being appeased by sacrifice. Even so, men fail to understand the true meaning of sacrifice. In the case of the Master Jesus, because of the perfection in his nature which he clearly perceived, he did not require any propitiation for sin. Yet he is portrayed as one who is able to save to the uttermost those who believe in him. Yet he is portrayed as one who is able to save to the uttermost those who believe in him. Those who understand the meaning of God, Christ, and life from a real standpoint see that there is no difference between the divine nature in Jesus and the divine nature in themselves. They understand that there is no partiality in heaven. All can equate with the image of the beloved Son. The 90 and 9 must be forsaken, for they already possess the strength within themselves to perceive this truth. And the one who is lost, caught in the brambles of confusion, blinded to his own reality and the inward radiance of the divine image, must now forsake the false doctrine of the blind leaders of his blindness. He must heed the voice of God and return to it. Through our auric studies that we are releasing herein, we anticipate that many shall find their way back to the Father's house. There they will perceive that they must present themselves a living sacrifice unto God. It was never the Father's intent to collect penance from humanity, nor to exact a form of sacrifice as appeasement of his wrath. For the only wrath of God that is valid in the cosmic courts of heaven is that karmic recompense, that weight of sin which imputes to humanity the darkness they have created, acceded to, or acknowledged. In reality, man lives in a universe of light and purpose. To veil that purpose from God was never the intention of God. To veil that purpose from man was never the intention of God. For he has clearly said, that which has been hidden shall be revealed. In this sense, then, the higher sense of releasing the divine knowing within man, who in reality is both the knower and the known, do we finally establish the reality of God within the consciousness of the individual, thus producing right there in man the perfection that he craves. It is amazing how, by ignorance, men are thwarted in their attempts to understand life, simply because they do not know, they do not find out. Therefore, as our beloved Master once said, For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. He spoke of understanding. This most precious treasure we shall attempt to bequeath to you in our releases on the studies of the human aura. All who read should bear in mind that we cannot increase the knowledge of those who do not first invoke it from the throne of grace. It is of utmost importance that the student understand that there is a process whereby every observation of his 5 senses is transmitted automatically to subconscious levels within himself, whereby inner hieroglyph, events he has witnessed or matters which he has studied are recorded. Thus, the entire transmittal of data from the external world to the internal lies in the akashic records of his own being. The process of recall, while quite involved from a technical standpoint, is almost instantaneous. Out of the storehouse of memory, man quite easily calls forth those treasures of being. Unfortunately, not all events are benign. Not all recordings are examples of perfection. The sorting and classification of these records is the responsibility of the body elemental and the recording angel of the individual life stream. You will find mention of the recording angels in the words of Jesus when he spoke of the little ones. For I say unto you that their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. Each individual has such an angel representing the purity of the infinite God, assigned to his life stream by divine decree from the very foundation of the world. This angel has the ability not only to read the life record of everyone upon the planet, but also to commune directly with the heart of God, to behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. Thus, the intent of God to reveal himself unto the angel of his presence attached to each of his children operates through the Holy Christ self in perfect harmony with the divine plan. How unfortunate are those who, while always perceiving the height and depth of man, are never able to become impersonal enough in their approach to endow the least of these my brethren with the quality of the living Christ. Men find it not at all difficult to believe that the fullness of the Godhead bodily dwelleth in Jesus, but they do find it difficult to believe that it also dwelleth in themselves. Yet this God has done. He has in the bestowal of the Christ flame placed the fullness of himself in every son and daughter. While the divine nature is properly understood, then how easily humanity can bring forth the anticorona and thus begin the process of correctly weaving their life manifestation. Now, as man studies the science of perfecting the aura, he should also understand that through the misqualification of thought and feeling, many undesirable traits are brought into manifestation. Most dangerous of all is misqualification in the emotional body of man, in the feeling world, for thereby the heart is touched and in turn often sways the whole life record of the individual into a miasma of doubt and questioning. I do not say that the sincere student does not have the right to question or even to doubt, but I do say that once the truth is clearly presented to him, if the door of his heart be open, he will never doubt and never question the truth of the living God. He may not leap over the hurdle, but he will clearly perceive that it can be. He may not leap over the hurdle, but he will clearly perceive that it can truly be, that he will be able, yea, that he is able to realize more of God than that which his present awareness allows. He may not leap over the hurdle, but he will clearly perceive that it can truly be, that he will be able, that he is able to realize more of God than that which his present awareness allows. Let us free humanity by right knowledge from all that has bound them and blinded to their own great inner power, to the treasure house God has locked within this consciousness. Now, I want to make very certain that all understand the misqualification in the feeling world, such as anger, self-righteousness, fear, hatred, jealousy, condemnation, and resentment, gives a certain leverage to the power of amplification. This is similar to the transponder system on your large aircraft. When the transponder button is pushed by the pilot, it triggers a signal from the transponder which causes an enlarged blip to appear upon the electronic board of the airport traffic controller, thereby enabling the plane to be easily identified. Thus do the emotions of mankind often falsely amplify misqualified thoughts and feelings to the point where a dominant position is assumed by those misqualified feelings. Although this takes place without the consent of the real being of man, nevertheless darkness does then cover the earth. Yet Christ has said, I am the light of the world. I have given you many thoughts in my first release on the studies of the human aura. The brothers of the golden robe will joyously respond to the depth of his wisdom, which we shall receive in the completed series. From the archives of the Brotherhood, our love pours forth. Chapter 2. The susceptibility of the aura. Continuing auric studies, we examine the influences of the world upon the human monad. Man is a creature of simple design, yet complex in the externalization of that design. Little do men realize when first they ponder the nature of themselves, the ramifications of the consciousness of each individual. The influences of the world, the thoughts of the world, the feelings of humanity are easily transmitted consciously or unconsciously from person to person. And in the transmittal of thoughts and feelings, neither sender nor receiver has any guarantee that the patterns of his intent will be preserved intact. If the light that is in man that he transmits is undesirable, those who are easily made the victim of his thoughts and feelings are those who are naturally affinitized with him, may reproduce the effects of those thoughts and feelings in their own worlds. So many in the world today are victims of the thoughts of others, even thoughts from other eras, which endure because mankind have fed their attention and their energies into them. In effect, it can be said that man has endowed either his evil or his good deeds with a semi permanent existence, and that the consciousness of good and evil partaken of by Adam and Eve, because it has been perpetuated by his free will, is living in man today. Yet through a return to the Edenic consciousness of God, man is able to find the tree of life, which is in the midst thereof, and to eat of the fruit and live forever. There is much that we shall transmit in our studies, but first we must ask that the students approach them with the right attitude in order that we may create a climate of the practical right use of knowledge. We may create a climate of the practical use of right knowledge. Through the ages that have passed, from spiritual innocence to worldly contamination, men have seldom observed the recycling process by which there have been regurgitated upon the screen of life a flood of undesirable qualities. Both world and individual problems have been prolonged entirely because of the vibrational patine of blackened and tarry substance with which man has coated his very being and then refused to surrender. It is time humanity began to examine themselves as individuals having a creative potential, which they may use to influence the auras of others, and which in turn makes them susceptible to influences from others, both good and bad. Thoughts of love, joy, and peace, divine thoughts created in the hearts of the saints and the angelic hosts, should never be avoided, but should be enhanced by the magnetic force field of the aura. Men can learn from one another, and their auric emanations can benefit from contact with those whose auras are filled with virtue. Because it is just as easy for the aura to absorb vice as it is to absorb virtue, the individual must understand how this process of thought and feeling transmittal can help or hinder him in his daily occupation. Because people are so completely unaware of the effects of the mass consciousness as well as the mental pressures from neighbors and friends, we continue to stress the importance of using the violet transmuting flame and the tube of light as effective deterrents to the penetration of the aura by undesirable qualities and to their effects upon the mind and being. Needless to say, I am determined to transmit in this series definite information that shall make it easier for the soul within man to hold dominion over his life pattern, thus improving the quality of the human aura. Unless this be done, great pain and suffering will undoubtedly come to humanity, and that unnecessarily. The Brothers of the Golden Robe, in their devotions and study of the holy wisdom of God, have recently considered that a clearer revelation of matters involving the human aura would make it possible for more individuals who are oriented around spiritual knowledge to be assisted and to assist others, hence this series. Now, without question, there are problems manifesting in the world wholly as a result of the individual's contact with the auric field or force field of embodied humanity. Therefore, defenses must be clearly shown. They must be understood at the level of the individual. In addition to that, methods of projecting the consciousness or the force field out of the physical body into others in one's immediate family or circle of friends must be understood and then effectively mastered as a means of sending hopeful light rays of cosmic service to those who, while in need of assistance, have no idea whatsoever that such possibilities exist. Although people are brought under the benign or harmful power of various auric manifestations and force fields, they do not understand how this is done, and many times they are unaware that it is being done. It is not a question of scientific marvel to them or one of strange phenomena. They simply do not know that it exists, but we do. Working effectively with this knowledge from a wholly constructive standpoint, the angelic hosts and brothers of the golden robe yearn to see the day manifest when humanity, one and all, will understand how they may use this beneficent, one and all will understand how they may use this beneficent force of the human aura in a correct and proper manner. For they will see that the aura is designed to be a reflector of good to all whom they meet and the world at large, and to the world at large. Those skilled in mortal hypnotism and seductive practices have a partial knowledge of the use of auric and force field projections, and they do achieve limited results that lend credence to their work in the minds of some whose goals are likewise limited. As our beloved Master Jesus once said, the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. In conference with us, beloved Jesus has made very clear that in making that statement, it was never his intention to see this condition prevail. Rather, it was his promise to all who believed in the Christ, greater works shall ye do, because I go on to my Father. Thus it is the will of God that each generation should attempt to improve the quality of the abundant life upon the planetary body through every available means that is in keeping with the teaching and practice of the Christ. It has been our intent in these first two releases to give certain vital bits of information on our subject. Later in the series, we shall develop that understanding of our instruction, which, if correctly applied, can change your life and the lives of countless numbers among mankind, because they will be better able to appreciate and to follow the way of truth and the way of hope. Do you know how many individuals there are in the world today who, by reason of their ignorance on these very subjects, become the victims of the manipulators? Well, beloved ones, there are many, I assure you, and I do not want the graduates from our class to ever again be among them. Let me then go back to the basic principles of Ascended Master Law by citing for all the need to use your tube of light and the violet transmuting flame as the greatest protection you can ever have against the forces of manipulation. How very dominant, God endowed, and beautiful are the fragments of divine knowledge that have been received by you thus far. Do you truly meditate upon them? Do you make them a part of your life? Or do you find them to be entertaining flowers that somehow the mind takes a fancy to? Beloved ones, I want to prepare you for a most tremendous piece of information which I will transmit to you in a forthcoming lesson. But I want to make certain that when you receive this concept, which I will bring to you, you meditate upon it like a flower. Therefore, prepare yourselves in your meditations for this concept, which I assure you will give you a very concrete idea beyond the mechanical as to just how you can accomplish the purification of your aura. Without this knowledge that I am about to reveal, a great deal more time could very well elapse before you would truly understand the real freedom you have and how to use it for the blessing of all life. When you divinely apply the wisdom of the Great White Brotherhood to the correct manifestation of reality in your world, I am certain that the improvement of your aura and in the quality of your life will be very great indeed. Remember that I want you to be a flower, a rose, or a lotus, waiting in the swamplands of life to receive the precious drops of truth that heaven has prepared for you. If you will do this, I am certain that you will need no further proof of the reality of your being, of the unfolding kingdom that is within you, and of how you can take dominion over that kingdom as God intended in a way that is safe, sane, and correct. When there are so many books being written today, so many words being released into the stream of mankind's consciousness, which are almost a complete aberration of the divine intent, I must urge you to appreciate the opportunity we are releasing to you today. I remain devoted to your heart's light. Chapter 3. The Colorations of the Aura. The reality of your God perfection latent in all life is continually releasing the current of its magnificence into your consciousness. Whenever an impediment blocks the flow of this magnificent God energy, it is as though an object has opaqued the light of the sun. As the sun has its corona, so there is always a spillover of the delightful radiance of the vital life forces in man, which are so easily subjected to his negative influences and misuse. This discolors the aura with negative vibration and leads man to draw the conclusion that he is less than the perfection of God. Just as men recall on a cloudy day that the radiance of the sun is behind the clouds and can be seen from an aircraft which penetrates the clouds, so man should also begin to develop and maintain the habit of constantly telling himself that the blazing, dazzling reality of the fullness of God is being realized to him moment by moment as the master plan of eternal purpose. Thus, he should develop the habit of counteracting all examples of shadow and misqualification by applying the principle of eternal reality. By applying the principle of internal reality. What is real? What is real is released to man as he practices the ritual of penetration, of penetrating the light of the Son of God by the very power of the light that is within him, and thereby more and more of the divine radiance can infuse the aura in its manifest pattern. Therefore, today, the delight of the law of God will be in the mouth of the man or woman will be in the mouth of the man or woman who will speak the living word, invoking from the heart of God that magnificence which he already is, claiming in the world I am, the fullness of the Godhead bodily in himself, as a joint heir with the universal Christ consciousness. Now, in the matter of the effects of one's thoughts and feelings upon the human aura, we shall briefly touch upon the subject of coloration. As the intensity of the white and the violet light is increased in the aura, especially those shades that are pale and ethereal, and ethereal, one notes the one notes the enlarging of man's perceptions and an increase in spirituality. As the pale yellow, almost golden light floods through the mind, the very fingers of cosmic intelligence manifest as interconnecting light rays, enabling the mind of God to contact the universal mind of God. By amplifying in the aura the beauty of the pastel pink, vibrating fire of the cup of universal love, man is able to spill over into the world the very thoughts of divine love. As so many know, the color of violet vibrating at the top of the spectrum is transmutative. As so many know, the color of violet vibrating at the top of the spectrum is transmutative and buoyant. Born to the purple, the man who infuses his aura is cloaked in the invincibility of the King of Kings. This royal color is the cosmic fire of the Holy Spirit, which when blended with the azure blue of the when blended with the azure blue of the will of God, manifests as divine love in action in that holy will. The green light, eternally new with abundance, charges the aura of man with the power of universal healing and supply. To seal all in the will of God is to drink from the goblet of that holy will. In the electric blue of the ascended masters, it denotes both purity and power. Now, not all of mankind see the aura, and for some it is perhaps a misstatement to say that they do. What happens in most cases is a sensing by the inner being of the reader of the auric emanations of others and the interpolation. Never heard that word before. We'll have to look that up. Interpolation. Interpoliation. Interesting. Okay. What happens in most cases is a sensing by the inner being of the reader of the auric emanations of others and the interpolation thereof by the mind through the organ of vision. The impressions of the impinging aura carried over the nerve pathway as a result of the extension of the reader's consciousness into the domain of the magnetic emanation seem themselves to be seen when in reality they are only felt. Vibrations of anger often register as crimson flashes, just as black is seen in the aura as the opaquing by negative thoughts and feelings of the otherwise natural release of the light of the presence through the being of man. Remember, beloved ones, that the tone of the divine aura is an extension of God, just as the mode of thinking and feeling is the extension of the human consciousness. The interference with the aura in its natural pure state by the mortal consciousness and its misqualification of light create the negative colorations that are both seen and felt by the more sensitive among mankind. The muddying of the pure colors of the aura occurs whenever there is a mingling of the emanations of imperfect thoughts and feelings with the pure colors released through the prism of the Christ. This marked change in color and vibration is obvious to the trained eye. And then we're to see the illustrations on page 272 of a muddied aura. And so the muddied aura, we have free will, and therefore we can do exactly what we will with the energies of our chakras, the centers of the light in our body that govern the flow of energy to all levels of our being. Through our chakras, we are intended to simultaneously release God's light into the world, filling our auras with spirit, and take in God's light, taking in prana or the Holy Spirit. We release God's light as Father, a masculine action. We take in God's light as Mother, a feminine action. This is the balance of the Tai Chi in each chakra. It forms a basket weave effect as these spiritual centers are whirling. This person is misusing each of his 7 chakras. The crown, which should be the crown of life, is releasing nothing but the human consciousness, adding to the mass consciousness of the race. By the mass consciousness, we mean the sea of humanity who are not enlightened. In this drawing, you can see the uncontrolled release of energy in the thought and feeling worlds. Energy is being raised, but it is flowing through the crown and third eye imperfectly. There is a mental explosion going on in this person's consciousness. That mental explosion is the misuse of the third eye and the sending forth of images that are incorrect. You can also see the misuse of the spoken word through the throat chakra as the flame of blue descending in a tirade of energy. You can see the misuse of the heart chakra where there is a stirring up of the emotions, as well as the misuse of the solar plexus, seat of the soul and base of the spine. So each of these represent a muddied aura. Muddied aura 2. This is another form of misqualification. Muddied aura 2. This is another form of misqualification, filling the aura with brown. That sinking feeling you get in the belly when you contact human creation sinks. That sinking feeling you get in the belly when you contact human creation sinks all of the energy down, down, and down. These lines from the heart indicate a direct action of psychic consciousness coming out as a psychic hook. A psychic hook hooks you into someone's human consciousness through sympathy. The impure heart colors all of the other chakras. It is dripping with human sympathy that is going to affect the emotions, color the soul and the soul awareness, and finally result in the misuse of the base of the spine chakra. So that's when we're too sympathetic and take on somebody's stuff without filtering it out for ourselves, is my interpretation of that. Fascinating. Muddied aura 3. Muddied aura 3. This is a typical aura of those who are part of the mass consciousness. The auras of people like this are filled with brown and green like the muck you see at the bottom of a river. They move in the astral plane. They do not involve the tube of light. They do not invoke the tube of light or the violet flame, and so their auras take on and are colored by their surroundings. The vertical lines of red and orange show that people like this are powder kegs. They are ready to become angry the moment their egos are offended. Put them in contact with someone who has separated from the mass consciousness, and they are likely to explode because they cannot bear the contact with light. Put them in contact with people who are part of the milling crowd, part of the herd, and they will get along just fine. They move in between one another's anger. They move in between one another's angers and passions and prides, and they get along and tolerate each other's and tolerate one another's human effluvia. Such individuals are largely dominated by what is called the moon consciousness. The moon as an orange focal point or cap above the crown completely obliterates the contact of God through the crown chakra. The moon as a black focus of the crescent at the base of the spine cuts off the contact with the Divine Mother and the purity of the Mother Light. These people are governed by the cycles of the moon. As the moon goes through the 12 signs of the zodiac, about each 28 days, they tend to take on the misuses of God's energy through lunar substance, which is the emotional misuse of the sacred fire. Muddied Aura 4. Muddied Aura 4. This is another aura of the mass consciousness. This person has a considerable amount of faith, as denoted by the blue halo around his head. He might be a very religious person who has a bit of illumination in his aura gleaned from his faith, as denoted by the yellow vertical lines around his head. But his heart is a sympathetic heart. The energies of the heart, instead of coming out in a direct line, are tending to fall, because he has not discerned the difference between compassion and sympathy. He is always in sympathy with someone who is the underdog, and that sympathy falls in the solar plexus. This kind of person identifies with other people's human consciousness. Instead of exalting the Christ, he sinks to the level of whomever he is with, whomever has a problem. Instead of using the light of the heart to uplift, to ennoble, to instill others with Christ awareness, he tends to use the heart energy to be in agreement with, which is what sympathy means, someone's human consciousness. Among mankind, there are very sincere people, but because they have not invoked the action of the Holy Spirit, their auras have not been purged of this sympathetic substance. Auras change very quickly. The moment this person comes in contact with the violet flame of the Holy Spirit, that quickening fire passing through his aura will begin to transmute this substance and give him an entirely new awareness of God. There are many layers of misqualified energy to be consumed, and the scrubbing action of the violet flame works both from the surface of the aura to the chakras and from the threefold flame within the secret chamber of the heart to the surface. Once the violet flame begins to do its work, his chakras will become more aligned and his aura will show a more intense radiation. Beginning as a trickle, then intensifying as a beacon of light through all of the chakras. Muddied chakra. Oh, I'm running out of battery. Oh. How are you doing? We got 13%. We're at 45 minutes in. We're doing good, guys. This is excellent. I'm loving this. I hope you are too. Woohoo! All right, I want some coffee. How much more do we have? So we're on page 21. And colorations of the aura is only up until page 25. So we got 4 more pages to read. And then we've just got a few more illustrations. Yeah. 72 to 87. So we've got 7 more. So we got 11 more pages, guys. We can do it. We can do it. Yeah. I'm learning to play guitar, and I love that white sweater. So they're together, where normally I would do this, and instead I said no. I already spent a while there in recording another film with Michael. So if you are looking for the next episode, we're actually going to be talking about Saint Germain, who is the dude behind the ivy right there. So very much looking forward to sharing that. I'll get that edited maybe even tonight and then sent out. I'll get this up as well. And then I'm going to be refining this down so that then you'll be able to get the audiobook. I'm going to do that with the green book, and I'm going to do it also with the 4 agreements. I don't know whether I'll be even able to do it with the Alchemist, but I'm going to try as well eventually. But ultimately, I'm doing the best that I can. and we can get back to it. So, the muddied aura. Muddied aura 5. Here the misuse of the sacred fire of God is centered in the crown and the third eye. This is the aura of someone who is mentally polarized but not Christ polarized. His mind is not filled with the Christ consciousness. This kind of person can be steeped in any kind of philosophy or carnal or intellectual accomplishment, but he will not have the corona, the crown of the Christ, the halo of life. His crown and head area will be marked by the type of manifestation you see here. And other chakras are also impure, but most of the energy this person receives from God is misqualified mentally. Muddied aura 6. Muddied aura 6. In this drawing, we see the misuse of the sacred fire through the power of the spoken word. This is mortal cursing and malice. It is being completely out of control in the throat chakra. It is sending forth arrows and barbs and psychic wedges. The red arrows at the throat and red zigzags around the legs denote passion. The black arrows and the spirals denote the total misuse of the word of God. This person is in a state of anger. I am certain you have seen people like this even in public spaces. They become slightly irritated and go into a tirade. They start swearing at the nearest person they think has done something wrong to them. They are polluting the aura of their own world as well as the aura of the earth. This is where pollution starts. If you ever have a tantrum, this is what you look like. All of the chakras are discolored, but here you can especially see what the throat chakra would look like. The beautiful flow of God's pure blue energy and the word of God through the throat chakra is desecrated and compromised beyond recognition. The karma of the misuse of this energy settles. It settles in the electronic belt which surrounds the chakras below the heart. It takes time to clean up the residue of misqualified energy that settles in the electronic belt. It takes meditation, it takes invocation, it takes the violet flame. The immediate surface vibration of the aura may be cleaned quickly, but the misuse of energy that piles up century after century takes certain cycles to clear. 5 more, guys. My arm. All right. Editing is a wonderful thing because nobody except for you who are with me right now can see this in the replay. Woohoo! All right. Muddied aura 7. Muddied aura 7. This figure shows the aura of a black magician, misusing the energies of the third eye and the solar plexus. You can see the demons of the mind that he is projecting to carry out his will. The person I took this reading from was actually a figure well placed in our government, and that aura shows a masterminded manipulation of forces of nations and of the planet itself. When we are confronted by this energy, how does it affect us? We may feel as if we have been hypnotized. Almost trembling, we may feel that we have been totally subjugated by intimidation. People like this have an almost overpowering will. They put out their ideas, their policies, whatever they are going to put out with an intense use of the third eye chakra. They become so strong in their misuse of energy that it takes people who have a corresponding momentum of Christ consciousness in the same chakra to see through them and overcome them. Most people have not misused the sacred fire to this degree, nor have they attained a corresponding level of the Christ consciousness, so they become victimized by those who are black magicians. Until they do attain a corresponding level of the Christ consciousness, they are defenseless except through invocation of the I Am presence and the Christ self, who will immediately overshadow the soul who is confronted by the accuser of the brethren. You're protected. Muddied aura 8. Muddied aura 8. This drawing shows the total mechanization concept. An individual totally dominated by the mass mind. It is not unusual for people to have this kind of aura. The Kundalini is nothing but an orange coil rising from the base of the spine. In all of the chakras, energy is misused and perverted, put out as a net of materialism and mechanization. This is not pretty, but this entire plane of the human consciousness is not pretty. Yet God, as the flame of life within, will clean this up when we diligently invoke his sacred fire. The snake-like form at this person's feet indicates animal magnetism and its clarification and its calcification in the planes of the subconscious mind. That was the end of that. So we'll get back to where there was the star. Great. The muddying of the pure auras of The muddying of the pure auras. What? Okay, sorry guys. The muddying of the pure colors of the aura occurs whenever there is a mingling of the emanations of flings within the pure colors released through the prism of the Christ. This marked change in color and vibration is obvious to the trained eye, as per the illustrations of muddied auras. In this connection, may I say that one can learn to discern the thoughts and feelings of mortal men and to perceive what is acting in their world. The difference between momentary passions, consciously willed and sustained, deep-seated emotional trends must be considered. How easy it is to see through the process of auric discernment that which is not immaculate in someone's feelings, thoughts, or acts without understanding that only a temporary surface disturbance may have taken place. Much later, if that one is not careful to override such disturbances by retraining the mind and feelings and consciously governing the energy flow, an in-depth penetration may occur whereby auric contamination will reach subconscious levels and thus prolong the time span of man's indulgence in negative states. Great care should be exercised by all who desire to amplify the immaculate God concept of others to see that they do not, by their incomplete perceptions, actually intensify those negative conditions, which those whom they would assist may not be harboring at all, but they are only entertaining momentarily. Then, too, there is the matter of the projection of massed force fields of negatively qualified energy, which can become a patine, or layer of substance, overlaid upon the natural vibration of individuals. Although totally foreign to their force field, this overlay of darkness, if seen at an inopportune moment, may be diagnosed by the careless or untrained observer as an outcropping of the bedrock of his identity. Always remember, dear hearts, that those who fall in the swamp may come up covered with mud, for the quicksands of life, by their very nature, always seek to drag man down. But man can and does escape these conditions, overcoming through the same glorious victory that brings forth the lotus of the swamplands of life. I want you to understand, then, that by a simple act of invoking the light of the Christ consciousness, man can overcome the ugly chartreuse green of jealousy and resentment, the muddied yellow of selfish intellectualism, the crimson reds of passion, and even the utmost violet black of attempts of self-righteous justification. To see others clearly, beloved hearts, remember that man must first perceive in himself the beautiful crystal of cosmic purity. Then, casting the beam out of his own eye, he can see clearly to take the mote out of his brother's eye. By the purification of your perceptions, you will be able to enjoy the entire process of beholding the Christ in self and others. As one by one the little disturbances of the aura are cleaned up through the natural manifestation of the childlike beauty of cosmic innocence. What is innocence but the inner sense and the poem of victory that God writes through man is already there in matrix and in creative form, waiting to be delivered upon the pages of life. Human density may have interfered with the manifestation of the Christ in man, but the light and love of the law will produce for him the greatest purification, making possible the penetration of the aura by the beautiful colors of the Christ consciousness. I should like our students throughout the world to join with me in a determined effort to let the crystal clear grace of the throne that is within you, as the threefold flame, 3 in 1, hence throne, ray out into our world such ecstatic electrical cosmic energy that you will literally vaporize the darkened elements of your own aura and hence develop that magnificent seeing that will bring the joy of the angels and the light of God to all whom you meet. Perhaps we shall become more technical, but I think in no way can we become more practical than we have in that which I have already spoken. Will you follow the Christ of your being in this regeneration? Chapter 4, the reading of the aura, will come next. I hope that you have enjoyed tonight's presentation of Kuthumi's The Human Aura as one of the 4 foundational texts of the teachings of the Ascended Masters. So thank you very much for tuning in to the show tonight, and let me know what this meant to you, what it means for you, what you're going to do with it, what your favorite part was, if there were any parts you didn't understand. We can certainly speak into these more later, but there are codes of light contained in these words. So I hope that you feel fueled and filled after having received some of them, and very much will look forward to coming back with you again next Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time again for around an hour's worth of reading the next section of this book. So very much looking forward to where we get from here. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll pick up again in a week. Have a good one, guys. Toodaloo. Laura J. Namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. Thank you.